Hello, hello, and welcome back to Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney. This is. Sorry, a little sick. This is the first game. Court will now reconvene. I don't know the voices that I give them. Oh, kind of. Wasn't like, Defense Attorney. No. Defense Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand? I know exactly what voice I gave him. Now then, if you would, Mr. Bain.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, Mr. The witness, state his name and occupation.
Is this farce necessary, Your Honor? Believe me, far stranger things have on in this courtroom. Fine, don't play along. First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hand? By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it.
Objection!
Yo, Phoenix is by my side now. I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Wright, what do you think you're doing, Wright? Wow, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taking it off except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit. Oh. When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to have been there in the hideout at the time of the crime. In other words, I must be the real killer. Is that what you're trying to say? Not bad, Apollo. Mumble. Mr. Gavin, I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court.
What?
Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation, I see little reason to hide anything. Very well. Allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events of that fateful night? Ooh, testimony. Alright. I have to try remembering all of the stuff. It's almost been like 2 weeks since I've recorded that fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears on the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the call came from Wright.
So, you witnessed the murder?
For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defense team? Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little Wait. Mr. Wright? You had to say that. Because that was the only probable window of opportunity, right, Apollo? Oh. Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Wait, why is this? Oh, autoplay's on. Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going against Mr. Gavin. Okay. So, window of opportunity, right? I mean, it's open there, right? Why is the window such a big deal? Because he was looking through to know when Phoenix left, so he could murder. Alright. I tried to press him. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. Cross-examination time. That fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. Did you know? That man? You mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers, his aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that.
So then, you knew the true nature of your client's job.
Of course, but I also knew he wasn't engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know. They were friends after all. Worried for my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score.
I see. What happened then?
I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. The little window? You mean the one you used to keep watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The Black Marketeers used it, I believe. Why did you go through the trouble of peeking in through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes, what if my theories had been unfounded? I'd be walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far, everything he's saying makes sense. It must have been right after the murder took place. How do you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout, Justice. I was just getting to that part in my testimony. Ah, there he is. The coolest defense in the West, we know and love. Even when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too, right? But you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. By photo, you mean the second photograph of the crime scene? Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and replaced his hat.
Can you describe the scene of the crime for us?
Yeah, this is the testimony. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Those were the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw at least.
Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police?
2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. Okay. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one, not a soul. But, that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Okay, so it looks like Justice, without being told to trust his client above all else. And that's awesome. That's exactly what, Mia made sure, Phoenix did in the first game. Ah yes, this mysterious fourth person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose? Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards in the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary. How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right? The 5th ace. Wait. Swap out a card has been raised. Isn't the 5th ace covered in blood, dog? Oh, this is Mr. Gavin's blood. He had to hide the card. A single drop of blood marks the front of the card. And it's not Shady's. I think I know. The question of why the killer would swap out a card has been raised. Can you point to a reason? Yes, I can. It's now or never. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out. One sec, let me just turn something down. I'm showing the card itself, and I'm gonna request that it was examined for DNA. Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Wait, let me click save in case I'm wrong. Why did the killer take the 5th ace? Because it's covered in his blood. My reason is, this.
Is that an ace?
Why? Why? It's got blood on it. Right next to the spade. What?
This is insane. Why wasn't I told about this? Why?
Could this be? Could this be the missing 5th ace? It's got Gavin's blood on it. Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing.
Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl.
Oh, that card? It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night after the murder had occurred.
I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock and trade, after all.
Objection! No, impossible, unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. Except it's not a fraud. How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason?
The reason for
the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. What's up with the head? Oh, the drop is going upwards, which means it couldn't have dripped onto the card. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Wait, but why? I'm sorry, someone in the background is blowing their nose. Objection! Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Actually, as discussed in the 5th game, if it's relevant to the case, it can be shown to the court after that evidence is made clear, even if it wasn't brought to, like, the people. Yeah. Oh? Uh-oh, let me see. Right, regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Except, ooh, I see your tell. I see your tell. Look at you twitching. Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now, I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence. Objection! This is baseless conjecture, baseless. Objection! Oh, he's doing the finger. Oh, I assure you it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. He already got a DNA test, didn't he? It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. Yeah, if it went down the back of his head, it wouldn't have ended up on the card. Right? This is actually Gavin's blood. The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the Lundqvist victim was found at the poker table, and before the killer swapped a card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there's one decisive problem with this scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, oh, the 5th ace was supposed to be in your hand. Whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses. Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? You're not supposed to be here. Yeah, you were upstairs, weren't you? This is during the murder, right? Well, for one thing, the killer's in the wrong place, I think. You think? Mr. Justice, your job here is not to think, but to know. Actually, no, it is to think. You don't know for certain, man. Just looking at you reminds me of the old days. Not the good old days, per se. How does a good old penalty sound? God damn. Let's try that one more time. And Mr. Justice, think before you sink. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses. Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? It's the victims, isn't it? Well, isn't it the victim's position that's the problem? I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Ah! Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards. Why, that's right! So, what does this mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. How do I do that? The chair was facing the other way. It would have to be. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in the photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know now the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? God, this is difficult. Would it be you? Because... Wait. Would he be able to, He wouldn't be able to see the bald head, would he? I'm gonna say the killer again, to begin. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front? Sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yes. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. What? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But... There's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry. Let's think it through and see what we find. Is this not, That's a cabinet behind him, right? Is he able to fit through the cabinet? I'll find him, man. We know the victim was facing toward the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. You're saying that the cabinet wasn't there. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front? At the cabinet. The killer had to be standing, here. You get points for flair, but that's about all you get. I thought I was onto something there, too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed up the cupboard and hit him from above? In simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at that very moment of the crime... Wait, I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. Watch this now? I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Why wouldn't the cupboard be there? Is it hiding something? Is it hiding a blood splatter? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately.
Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Aye, Your Honor. What?
There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff. What is that?
Yes. I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright.
I do my best. What was that? But let's forge ahead here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here. Which means... Apollo, try moving the cupboard. It was in front of the window. Meaning that the victim wasn't able to stand there. He was creating an alibi for himself. Thank you. My chair is squeaking. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my. What's this?
What is it now?
Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact.
Huh?
Oh dang. Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion.
Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in this diagram contradicts what we know about the crime?
The second witness. About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs.
Ah!
That's right. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What? What did you say? Oh? Is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool?
Here, don't expect me to play along with your little game, right?
It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court. Exactly, where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor.
Order, this is a court of law and I will have order.
We just now received word from our investigation team at the Borscht Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor.
Oh? And what did they find?
Well, Your Honor, it turns out there's a secret passage behind it.
What?
Ah yes, I believe I mentioned something of this sort before. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about, because it was a speakeasy, right? Oh, no, it was, it's an illegal gambling, I think. I do remember him saying something about that, now that he mentions it. The secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal going-ons. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. The girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked and the victim's hat was only off his head for the few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin, come on, say something.
Dare I ask what really happened that night?
Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith, a date with Destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Oh! What? Why did you do that? Wait here, I'll get help. Miss Olga Orley was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look, and bam! After the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized the need to destroy the evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him, he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor, and the fact that they were all red. Whisper, whisper, whisper. Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. Shake, shake, shake. I'm truly, truly sorry I did see this day come, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Gavin? Mr. Payne! Here. Ahem. Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion. Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest immediately.
Objection!
Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in by such a low-grade parlor trick.
Excuse me?
The defendant is cleared of all suspicion. This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. Yeah, because he could have known about the secret passage because he was in it committing the crime. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. Actually, it's not illegal. And not just anyone else, but to me, his own defense attorney.
Illegal evidence?
Objection!
Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin. Is there still any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne?
Actually, yeah. The fingerprints on the bottle were upside down.
I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The court, in this case, demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down. And that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor. See how the codfish squirms to the last, Walla Walla? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still. But I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that. Yeah. Just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down other than to... Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Let me think. I don't know. Take another look at the court record, sure. Wait. I believe you'll find a simple answer there, in plain sight. Why don't you just say the answer in plain words? Is the answer there already?
It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions. Indeed.
I don't think it's there, right? This is already upside down. Why would he? They're all in it upside down. Where? I guess I can't see it. He was pouring a glass. They had dinner together. Was he pouring a glass?
Well, Mr. Justice.
Mr. Gavin said that the court in this case demanded an explanation. Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done. That's funny.
Perhaps the defense would care to enlighten the court.
What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down? He was pouring a glass, right? It's actually easier to show you than to explain, Your Honor. Place that bottle on the floor, next to your chair.
Excuse me, on the floor?
Yes, now, reach down and pick it up. Without getting out of your chair.
Ah!
See, you naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down.
My bad. I'm a little dumb.
Look at this photograph, taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat there, playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor, to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times.
Wow, I can't believe it was that simple.
Recall our dinner that evening, Kristoff? I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed. But then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. And you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon.
Order, order, order! What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin?
Fascinating. So this is the legendary attorney's vain tactic of misdirection. What? You claim that I switched the bottle? Where is your proof? Proof? Well, that's, as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty. Exactly, it's empty. He put a card in it, dog. A full house. He put a card in it.
Objection!
I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honor, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation?
Ah, yes, I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borscht Ball Club. And here's one of the bottles in question.
What are you going to dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if any were on that, but his. Mr. Gavin probably wouldn't make such a novice mistake true. That bottle won't bear a trace of anything. Say, Apollo, if it doesn't bear a trace of anything, doesn't that mean it was wiped clean? If he was drinking them all night? Yes. Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humor me. Mr. Wright, that bottle will solve this case once and for all. Is it the one with your card in it? What? That's some bottle. Yep, that's his card. Crumpled up card. There's something inside the bottle. It's very obvious what it is. You don't have to go through this. What's this? Look, that card. It can't be. Recall that unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment. Miss Olga O'Reilly? Yes, our little swindling Devolchka. That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost the last hand just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Oh, wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? The one you mentioned in this piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of Hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game.
Disposed? Where?
There was an empty bottle of grape juice I'd been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. The Five of Hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped, and the only one who could have done that was the fourth person in the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin. Ooh, he's gonna burst. Let's see it. What? That is all. Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago. My past is like my logic. Straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little... I don't know that word. Right. This is insane. What about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone? No. Get out of here. You're not the prosecutor in this trial. I believe this time we finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christoph Gavin? He's admitted everything. We're prosecuting his arrest now. I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he? None that we know of. Mr. Wright, have you anything to add? I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter. About this victim, Mr. Shady Smooth. His occupation was listed as traveler. An odd profession, to be sure, and that's all we know about him. I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honor. Good. Mr. Wright? Yes? 7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch. Christoph Gavin was a man with much significance for me, both as a friend and a lawyer. He was extremely talented, to be sure. I needed 2 things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated, this courtroom. The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defense attorney. You, Apollo. Me? This is a dark time for our legal system. The twisting of justice brought on by our very own initial trial system. We have to set it right. Mr. Wright. Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Well, this seems like a good time to announce a verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright, not guilty. Court is adjourned. Nice. We did it. April 20th, 4:28 p.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. Thanks, Apollo. You came through, just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who cornered Mr. Gav, the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability? Ability? Yes, the sensitivity I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder if he means... Oh, no, really. I have one question for the witness, then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it's true. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer. Right. Today was full of questions without answers. Most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait, you don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right. She's my daughter. You know, you were right about this locket. Huh? I took this off his neck the night he died. But it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, this locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury. You testified. You said that locket was yours. I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's the truth. Wait, but then, why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside it? Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo. Yes? How about coming to work for me? You mean at the Wright & Co. Law Offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, but you're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man. Phoenix Wright. The case reached a sad conclusion, and he left law for good. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial, there was a single piece of forged evidence? It was the card, right? Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick. The trump card. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence.
Take that!
Oh. You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yes, that card couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left, leaving the wrong card in its place, luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene, the real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then, you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling themselves an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. Yeah, it had a red back. Weren't they playing with blue cards? Weren't they? They were playing with blue cards, weren't they? They were playing with blue cards. This one has a red back. Why would this have blood on it? You just picked any old card. The rumor is true. 7 years ago. Not that matters much now, does it? I punched him. It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn the next page. My office's address. Drop in if you like. Mr. Wright. Oh, about your uppercut. Try yelling, "Take that!" next time. I find it packs a little more punch. That's funny. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. That's so cool. I'm already enjoying this game. So he forged evidence? Why? And with that, Mr. Wright walked out the door. And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved. And at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery of that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law, and this is how my story begins. That was amazing. I love that first level. Genuinely, what's that? I have no information. No. But that first level, God, that's good. It leaves you, like, on the edge of your seat the entire time. Like, you don't know what's going on at all. Even if you've played all of the other games. Like, I'm sure I had predictions, but some of them were wrong, some of them were right, who knows. But, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and it leaves a bunch of mysteries unanswered that forces you to play the next episode. It's just It's really good, but I'm going to have to play the next episode in the next episode. Bye-bye.